Okay, this video is going to be about actually importing your images that you take from your SD card into our Lightroom library and onto the external disk, right? So there's a little finicky stuff happening here where a Lightroom catalog is actually just a database that kind of collects data about how you want to handle these images versus the actual images that you took themselves, right? And you can work on a catalog in one place and have your images someplace else. We obviously want to make sure that everything is in one single place. So I've already inserted my SD card. Now, when you insert your SD card and you already have your Lightroom open with the catalog, it will actually automatically usually be like, oh, you just inserted an SD card. Let me import stuff for you. So the same dialog will come up, but let's pretend that we're not going to do that way. That I just inserted it and it didn't come up. There's a couple ways to get to it, right? We can go to File, Import Videos. We can hit Command-Shift-I, or we can use this little button down here in the bottom left, and that's what I'm going to do. I'll click Import. Now this will bring up our import dialog box. Okay. Now this already automatically has decided, oh, SD card's there. But if for some reason you do it and it's not there, right? I mean, it makes the most sense, right, that it's coming from the device. So just make sure that this is right here, and if it's not for some reason, go ahead and click on it. Then we have to mosey over here to the other side. And this is where kind of a lot of the magic happens, right? Now, as it stands right now, you'll see that this wants to send it to my hard drive to a folder called Pictures under my user login, right? And for our purposes, we do not, again, want to put it on the hard drive of these computers. Again, I still have my external hard drive plugged in, so I'm going to go ahead and click this and click Other Destination. And once again, I've got to figure out how it wants me to go to my passport. And I'm just going to keep everything in the same folder here so that I don't really screw things up. So let's choose our same photo storytelling folder. I'm going to hit choose, and that's great. Now we have a lot of choices that we have to make, and we'll go through these a little hand by hand, right? So let's look at file handling. These build previews, I'm going to suggest that you put in standard. So the way Lightroom works, you actually kind of work on previews until you export. It's just a whole hot mess. Let's just say, let's build standard previews. Don't import, make a second copy too. We don't want to make a second copy. Okay, great. That sounds good. File renaming. This can be handy, right? Because if you see here, I took these garbage photos in my house 2 seconds before I recorded this video, right? Your camera has these real dumb names, right? So this is a chance to go ahead and not use those terrible names. So if we click on rename files, we can say, oh, let's do. I like a little bit of a shoot name. So shoot name, I'll just call this test, right? And so now I have some marker for myself to know. Like you might call it something like assignment 1, if I could type. There we go. Still not there. And we'd that way it renames them with both the shoot number and and just the numbering system, right? So they have unique names. It has to have a unique name, right? So that's great right there. Apply during import. This is something that we could do, but let's leave that. Let's just pretend that doesn't exist. Although it's interesting, we can add keywords if we wanted to. Later on, we have thousands of photos. You might want to add keywords to your photos so that you can find them faster in the database. So this would be like, my house test bad photos, something like, whatever you want to name those, and it would apply to all these images during import, but we're not gonna do anything for this here. And destination, right? Into a subfolder, we probably want to go into a subfolder, right? Let's try putting it into a full subfolder, and let's call this test shoot, right? We don't want them in the main folder here where the cluttering up everything where we have to work. So we wanted a of subfolder. I think that should work for us. Organize by date. I'm just going to say organize into one folder. You know, you can play with these settings on yourself, right? It really doesn't matter. It's kind of up to you on how you want to work. But I just suggest trying to keep things clean. So you'll see we're going into forward storytelling. We're going into a separate folder inside storytelling, right? So that because we're going to have to go in that folder and launch Lightroom. Let's not muck it up with like all these just photos everywhere. Great. So next we have to decide what we want to do. We have some settings that we can do up here. If we look in the top thing here, there's really just two choices here. There's copy as DING. So DING is actually an open format, RAW format. So if you'll notice, I shot these with a Nikon camera whose RAW format is NEF. You're going to be shooting with, if you're using the loaner cameras, a Canon camera, which is a CRW file, Canon RAW. So DING is actually open format, and while Lightroom imports, it can convert to that open format. Then you don't have to worry about drivers, blah blah blah, whatever. We don't really care about that. That's just what DING is. Let's just make sure we just have plain old copy handled. Now we can import. By default, it'll just check all, and that's usually what we want, right? So let's not play with that. Here you'll see, look, it can eject after import. Oh, that's somewhat handy. Whatever. Right, depends on what you want to do. So I'm just going to go ahead and click import, and you'll see Lightroom, does its work. It's like, oh, I'm importing it, right? And because we have the right catalog set up, right here, this is our catalog passport, and it's got this subfolder test shoot, and we'll be able to navigate quickly and freely to our shoots. And that is basic importing photos with Lightroom.